What's up, everybody? This is Fred Richani of the Sports Courier. In this interview, we chat with author Lisa Maydwell and filmmaker Joyce Licorish of the Final Round documentary covering the life and times of International Boxing Federation founder Robert W. Lee.
On the charge of filing false tax returns. Guilty.
They loaded up a gun and shot at me and missed. But it didn't mean they weren't trying to kill me. It only meant that their aim was bad. They were going to get Don King, and if they couldn't get him, they were going to get me. They put together a pretty good scheme. I don't know how many people testified. Not one of them ever said they ever gave me a nickel or a dime.
The main count of the indictment was a RICO count. Mob figures are typically charged with RICO.
There's a bright side somewhere. Don't you stop until you have found it. There's a bright side somewhere.
Well, Joyce and Lisa, thank you so much for joining us. We just checked out the trailer for the new documentary coming out June 17th on the late, great boxing promoter Robert Lee called The Final Round. Also based on the book written by Lisa, The Final Round, which was also written with Robert Lee. Thank you two so much for joining us. This has certainly been a journey. The late, great Robert Lee certainly had a story to tell, and it's one that doesn't just involve boxing, but of course involves a lot of politics, racism, segregation, tragedy, overcoming hardships, and all that. Before we kind of dive into the documentary, though, how does it feel to finally be able to tell a story to a wider audience and get to this finish line?
It's a great feeling because this is what Mr. Lee wanted. He wanted to get his story out. At first, he kind of kept it held to his chest. And a gentleman that I went to school with knew Mr. Lee, and that's how I met him. He introduced us. And then he was, Gerald King is his name. And he said, Mr. Lee, this story needs to be told. It's a great story. And he connected us, and it went from there.
And for me, I feel like it has been a full circle experience. It's taken us a lot longer to bring it to the world than we expected. However, I believe in divine alignment, and the release of the documentary happening on Juneteenth couldn't happen on a better day because it carries a really profound historical and cultural significance to have the release come out on that day. So we really get to tell his story, and hopefully at some point, the goal is to really restore his name. A lot of people know boxing. They've heard of, the Evander Holyfields and the Tysons of the world, but his name should be a household name. And so hopefully by releasing his story, that will happen for him.
Definitely. And for those that don't know, he was the co-founder of the International Boxing Federation, of course, a little known organization as the IBF, which obviously blew up and has become legendary to this day. And he was at the forefront with greats like Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield, George Foreman, just to name a few. The main part of the documentary is, of course, the false charges due to that sting operation, by the feds that were trying to get Don King. When you were making this documentary, you did get a few names on there, including Riddick Bowe. But were you trying to get Don King at all, or any of the other people that were close to that situation? And was it just a matter of they weren't interested, or what was the deal there?
I was in constant contact with a representative of Don King, and I sent him the book and everything, and we thought we were going to get him, and we were also working on Evander Holyfield, but it just never panned out.
Right.
But we were really excited to get Riddick Bowe and Michael Spinks.
And a new development, Lisa doesn't even know, I actually talked with Don King's current management about 2 weeks ago, and we were this close to getting an interview, but he asked for a hefty check, and we just didn't have it in the budget to pay him for the interview. He did see our sizzle, which was like the proof of concept that we shot before the full doc. And he said we did an excellent job, and he sent his condolences for Mr. Lee's passing.
For Lisa, when you were writing the Final Round originally, did you realize over time, oh my goodness, this could be a documentary?
Well, actually, when they approached me to write his book, because originally he had someone else writing his biography before I ever met him. And this person, he paid them and everything, and they never gave him the documentary. They kept it. And I mean, the book, the memoirs. Mm-hmm. And so they approached me to write the memoirs. And I said, I'll do it with the agreement that I can do the documentary, because I already, once I heard the story, I knew that it would be an amazing story to put out there. And so that was the deal from the beginning, to do the documentary.
And it just so happened, it really, again, one of those divine alignment things. I went to American Film Market right after Lisa published the book with a copy of the book in hand. And I was talking to someone in passing, just at a bar, about the book and how we wanted to make the documentary. And our executive producer was that person's attorney. And he brought him over and introduced them, and he saw the book and asked about it. And that's who ended up putting up a great deal of the funding for the project. And he wasn't able to make it on today. But that was really kind of how it all began. The proof of concept was like really done in order to try to hook a network into getting behind it so that we could go after those big names. But we ended up doing it all between the three companies. We aligned and did it all ourselves. And it really just served to open the doors to find the right distribution partner, which we partnered with Vision Films on, bringing it to the masses. So it worked out in the long run. There you go.
It certainly worked out, but of course, in the making of any film, but in particular a documentary, especially when it involves some very touchy subject and at times tragic subjects, it can be tough, right? There's some hurdles along the way. Maybe people don't want to open up. Maybe it's tough locking down some subjects. So were there any challenges involved in making the final round?
We started during COVID. We traveled to New York, at Jersey, during COVID. It was towards the end of it, the shutdown. And to give you an example, when we went over to New York, Times Square was like a ghost town. There was no one out there. Yeah. So we had to be really careful because, Mr. Lee and his wife, their health was failing. And so we had to be very careful with our team to make sure that we were keeping them safe. But I think the biggest challenges was thinking that we may get involvement from other boxers, and it didn't happen. And getting the final product complete, I think, were the biggest challenges for us.
Absolutely. I'd agree.
When Robert was talking about being questioned by the feds, right, he mentioned that they were all white. And he mentioned how when he found out the tragic news about his daughter, that the feds were aware when they picked up the phone and didn't bother to tell him, which was just so cruel and inhumane. And he talked about that. He did eventually, of course, get released from prison within a couple years and was able to kind of rebuild himself and his name. But did he or his family ever pursue any legal action for that wrongful conviction, or at least attempt to get at least a formal apology or some type of financial settlement?
He did not go after any type of apology, but what he did do was try to get the story out there to give his side and to clear his name. So that they never went after any legal, anything legal in regards to the daughter, which that was tragic. And even when he would talk about it as many years ago as it had been, you could still see the deep emotion. And even when his son talked about it in the documentary, you could see the raw emotion is still there.
And the unfortunate part is, we lost Mr. Lee before this was released. We didn't have the opportunity to restore his name. He needs to be in the Boxing Hall of Fame. There's some things that I personally would like to see happen as a result of releasing this documentary beyond. It's not about the financial gain or anything like that. I think Lisa and I would agree that Mr. Lee was such a remarkable human being. Anybody that encountered him, like talking to Mr. Grovade and his attorney that took him through the whole thing, he was like, I've never seen anybody go through something like this and have this kind of attitude about it. And even his favorite quote, there's a bright side somewhere, there's a bright side somewhere. He lived that. And I really hate that he didn't have the opportunity to see this come out. But I think there's still an opportunity there for those that are watching to maybe do some sort of petition of some sort to have his name restored and put him in the Boxing Hall of Fame where he belongs, because a lot of the greats wouldn't be where they are if it weren't for him and his story and the International Boxing Federation.
Very well said. Very well said. I certainly hope that ends up happening after the release of this documentary and everything. And this is something that also kind of confused me a bit too, which is that after his release, from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, like he never really got back into boxing as far as like promoting or anything like that. And we've seen in boxing where there are people who have literally done bad things, not falsely accused, but literally done bad things, who continue to work on the promotional side, the fighter side, everything else.
I think a big part of it was his age and his health. His health after doing that stint in the jail his health was already on the decline when he went in. But I think it was because of his health, and I think he just wanted peace in his last days, and he just didn't pursue those type of things. Sometimes when you get to a certain age, and I think he kind of left it up to us to do his battle for him, to help him battle to get his name where it should be.
Because he banned from the sport for a while too, so it just it was one of those things too where I don't know if they ever restored his ability to do that, so he didn't fight for that. I think the bigger thing for him was just being a living legacy and showing people that you can triumph over anything and come out and still have that positive attitude. Like Lisa said, he trusted us with the story and bringing it to the masses. It just took a lot longer than we expected. Almost 4.5 years.
But he knew that it was done. He knew that it had been completed before he passed. And his son watched it and told him about it. I feel good that he does know that it was completed.
For anybody that isn't familiar with Mr. Lee's story, what do you hope that they take away from the final round?
The undercore message is what I said before. There are people that go through things and it shapes them and turns them into like these, really introverted or toxic people. He has gone through the unthinkable and came out, even though he didn't have a chance to see this come out, he came out of it unscathed in that he still kept that bright attitude. And I think the takeaway is to learn something new about someone who made such a profound impact on history. It's a Juneteenth release, so that's also aligning with a lot of things that have gone on in the African-American community. And I think the other takeaway is to not be a product of what you've experienced, but be an example of how to come out and come out on top no matter what you experience. So that's really the takeaway. And I really hope that for those of you who check out the documentary, you'll also support the book because it's his words. Lisa did an excellent job capturing his memoirs before he passed, when he was still, in the best of health at his older age. His mind was solid, as you'll see in the documentary. And some of the stories that he told will resonate with you far beyond the final frame of the film. So make sure you also get a copy of the final round 16, the book.
Yeah, and I believe that the takeaway will be the generosity and kindness of Mr. Lee. He was such a generous man. He would send money to his friends who he knew was suffering during the pandemic. The things that he did in boxing, as far as the safety precautions that he enacted, pension type plan that he started for boxers, that they couldn't touch the money until they had been out of boxing so that they didn't blow through their money. Getting females into the sport on the judging side and as referees, and African Americans as referees. The things that he did to uplift other people when he was being knocked down is what Absolutely. I hope people will take away.
And one more thing I think too is just his fight against those systemic barriers. We always hear the black and white, but there were male, female, there were all sorts of barriers that he helped to overcome. And so his story will resonate, I feel, with a broader audience than just the African Americans, because you'll be able to see the triumphs, the tribulations faced by different individuals who are trying to strive for this recognition and justice in their respective fields, whatever their field may be. So I think that's a bigger takeaway as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well said. Yeah, and it's so true. And we don't give too much away about the documentary, but I mean, a lot of people would think like, oh, he just started his own promotion because he wants to be his own man. But no, he also did it to be inclusive. And he was Absolutely. So far, decades ahead of his time.
Beyond.
Right. Exactly. And for this to be coming out 2 days before the holiday is going to be profound as well, too.
Thank you so much for your time. Where can we find you next?
We're working on another boxing documentary called Hit Like a Girl. We feature 7 female boxers, many from the Atlanta area, the challenges and triumphs faced by women in boxing. And I'm about to direct a short called The Funeral. It's a comedy about ladies over 60. They can find me at Lisa Maydwell on all platforms.
And I'm Joyce Licorish with Dream Empire Films. We're based in Atlanta as well. So you can find me online, dreamempirefilms.com. I recently released a feature film. It's an inspirational faith-based drama called The Garden of Dreams. It's available on Amazon Prime right now. Additionally, I also produced another documentary called Invisible Warriors about the Black women that served in the U.S. military during World War II. So we're working on a release for that Black History Month next year. So always trying to do things that kind of move the needle forward. If it moves, if it touches, if it inspires, it's what Dream Empire stands for. And so be on the lookout for more projects from Dream Empire Films.